Welcome to Wood Talk. Now here are three guys who like to take big pieces of wood and make them smaller. Mark, Shannon, and Matt.
All right, welcome to show number 583. This is kind of a bit of a different one. We're going to do a little Q&A. Q&A for you guys.
The least sure of yourself you ever sounded.
Thank you. Thanks very much. I had nothing to read, so I'm just making it up. But this is going to be show 583, an Oops All Questions kind of episode. So we did ask for questions on Patreon. We can only really answer a few of those on the show, and you guys left us like 16 questions there. So we want to do our best to answer them as good as we can. The reality is we may not have great answers because this is not pre-selected. We're just reading them and making sure you guys get your voices heard. And then maybe, who knows, someone listening might have an answer for you that can put you in the right direction. So we're just going to get through these and have some fun. Rich Harwood is the first one I have here. He says, I've been woodworking as a hobbyist for about 2.5 years now. It seems like the more I learn, the more I understand just how much I don't know. I'm pretty much obsessed at this point. Tools, styles, techniques, tools again. It's like drinking from a fire hose, but I'm still thirsty somehow. I still get a remarkably deep sense of satisfaction touching a freshly hand-planed surface or getting that perfect friction fit 1/1000th of an inch at a time. I dutifully ignore my wife and children to get all the way through the grits. Attaboy. There you go. No skipping grits. I thought after this long some stuff would start. That's a weird sentence. Some stuff would start to be a little bit more mundane, but for the vast majority, it hasn't. I assume you each had a woodworking is life period. How long did yours last, if it ever ended? When did other hobbies start working their way back into your life? Love the show. My wife and young children eagerly await your response. the poor family. So this is actually kind of funny. As we were doing the recording for the last show, I got a couple of texts from my buddy Jason. He is someone who I know through woodworking. We met here at the shop during one of our open houses, but then we kind of became friends over nerd stuff and fitness, and he was a runner, but we started cycling together. So now he is like way down the cycling path. And Shannon, he's like you. He's annoying. He wants to go real fast, right? And he's getting competitive, and he's like just trying to be the best cyclist he can. But this hobby now owns him. And I just got a text from him talking about how he is thinking about possibly selling a couple of tools or doing something to move things around in the shop to make room for his bike repair stuff. Nice. And I think this is just kind of a natural course of things that can happen when you are kind of the serial hobbyist, where you're moving from one thing to another, making room physically.
I just sold a Veritas plane on eBay yesterday, in fact.
Yeah.
Not to buy a bike. I just, like I said several episodes ago, I'm kind of downsizing. But yeah. It hits home.
It's common. I mean, the thing is for me, I definitely left that phase of it. I guess you would call it like a hobby infatuation. Quite a while ago, I think, but I knew that my connection to woodworking, my love for woodworking, was definitely intense enough to make a career change. Like, I want to do this all the time. And even in spite of the things that annoy me about the job part of doing woodworking, I still would rather come into the shop and make some sawdust than do anything else. It's still a favorite of mine, but I am definitely not in that like we talked about it with the woodcraft stories about the early phases where you would just walk around the store and just daydream about all the cool things you could make. And these days Rich probably has a couple of YouTube channels that he really likes to watch. And he just, maybe a weirdo like me falls asleep watching some of those things that you're really interested in, right? This is sort of a honeymoon phase. So I don't know. As a hobby though, I imagine a lot of people get to the end of that and then maybe they're done. They might move on to something else. They might do like Jason and think about selling off all their stuff because they bought some really expensive bikes, and I think that's okay. But I'm curious, like for you guys, we're all kind of like, we fell in love with woodworking and then we never let it go. We just, we made some changes to make sure that we can continue to do it in an ongoing way, but it's definitely still not the honeymoon phase. I mean, are any of us still in the honeymoon phase?
No.
I don't think so, right? There's a practicality to it. There's still a love for it, but it's gone to a much more practical place.
Yeah, I was trying to think about, like, when did I lose my honeymoon phase? I mean, it had to have been more than 7-8 years down the line. Like,
when you joined Wood Talk? It all came crashing down.
It's been a long time on this show too, but
Yeah.
I mean, we kind of talked about it in our burnout episode. Like each of us has a different perspective in the fact that woodworking became the job, in one way, shape, or form. But you're right. Like the passion is there enough to be able to make it your job. I've found that my love of woodworking is morphed in a number of ways simply because I moved into this kind of commercial, industrial side of life. And I still get really excited talking to people building really cool stuff. And I'm fortunate to get really exposed to some of the finest home builders in the country and get to help advise them on wood movement stuff and everything. What that sometimes translates to is by the time I get home to my own wood shop, I'm kind of like, and I just go ride my bike. So I think some of that happened, but there's still no question. I will see a project now and I'll be like, I just have to build that. And I will obsess over it. And I go back to that kind of honeymoon phase where like, that's all you're thinking about and you can't wait to go back and start working on that project. I think it's just I've been able to compartmentalize a little bit, which I like to think of as being a little healthy because, like you said, neglecting everything else, including my own health. Let's be perfectly honest. Really honeymoon phase Shannon was fat Shannon. So let's just put it that way. There was, what was it? Somebody commented on our last show that's like, oh, we all liked Fat Shannon better anyway. So yeah. I'm claiming that title, but Fat Shannon. I mean, I discovered I needed to get back in shape and I remembered how much one of my previous passions, cycling, was, and I got back to that. So it's a nice balance. And I like the fact that I can put together a project, put it in clamps, and go for a bike ride while the glue dries. It's kind of nice.
I mean, for Rich, I would say it's going to go one of two ways. Like you're either going to settle in, and it's going to happen eventually, but who cares if you're still obsessed with it? Run with it. That's the fun part. You're going to settle in, and it sounds like if you're going this far into it and it's lasting this long, this sounds like it may be a lifetime hobby, and that's okay. Like that's the great part about woodworking is you could do it for a very long time as long as you're physically able, and that'll settle in. The bad news is for his family, there will likely be something else after this that won't be woodworking. Like once it does settle down, Rich sounds like the kind of guy who's probably going to do like I do and obsess about the next thing, whatever that may be.
He could be like me and not have that happen ever again.
That's no true. Other obsessions?
I don't have any. I've never had that obsessive phase of anything I've done since wood.
Really?
Yeah.
So that's why you're so boring, Matt.
I'm sorry, Mark, that I don't fit your mold of the perfect woodworking experience.
That's all the other experiences. That's the problem.
Yeah, I was going to say, it sounds like it is the perfect woodworking
This is why he rides his mother-in-law's bike.
I know. Well, why?
Shannon, we got to help him.
Not like you doesn't approve.
He's got nothing but a list of things to prove.
We got to find you something you can obsess over.
Yeah, but really,
I got a fly rod you can borrow.
I remember being in this phase. It was I started woodworking in 2008.
All your dates were at Woodcraft. We remember.
That's what I'm talking about. This is one of those things. That was part of the whole thing. Yeah. I started woodworking in 2008, and I probably ended this phase like 2012 or something like that. But it was like any magazine, any book, any YouTube video, anything. I'm there. I'm watching it. I'm learning. I'm in the shop. I'm building things. I'm practicing. I am obsessing over the next project that I want to make. Literally going through all the steps in my head before I even go out there to do anything with it. And it was like a whole life-consuming thing. What's hilarious about this thing from Rich is like the woodworking is life period. Like woodworking literally became my life.
It became life, yeah.
There is no other thing for me. Like you guys have your actual hobbies. I don't have any hobbies that I actually obsess about. Like we talked about, like I like snowmobiling, but I don't obsess about it. I don't care about like the stats on the snowmobiles, what the manufacturers are doing, what these different skis can do for you, your perfect shock settings. Mm-hmm. I do not care. I just want to go ride. I don't care.
Yeah. It sounds like you're a healthier person for it.
Yeah, probably.
Look at me. I'm so healthy.
I think the people who do what like I do, where you're jumping, and the thing is, I don't necessarily drop my hobbies. I add things, and then and they tone down.
Barbecue, plants, spiking. It's all still there.
Yeah, they never completely go away. I just keep adding more.
It's reflected in his t-shirts every day.
Yes. Yeah, but I honestly think that's a sign of a unhealthy mental state. I don't think that's a great place to be. Like being content with the thing you're into and continuing to do it on a day-to-day basis, you sound more content than I am.
I guess I've gone wide with everything in like the woodworking realm. Like I've
True.
Like, I did woodworking, like furniture making. Then I did like lumber stuff. I'm like, okay, now I can do sawing and drying.
That
and
makes
now I'm like,
sense.
okay, now I got machinery I got to be able to fix. So like it's widened out. I think that has done a lot of that.
You're younger than us. Maybe you just haven't hit that. Like, I think that's a natural progression.
I mean, at this point, though, like I'm the age that you guys were when I joined the show, almost.
Yeah.
Or Mark was at least. Shannon was a little bit older, but I'm the age that Mark was when I started the show with you guys 10 years ago.
I'm just thinking about that normal progression. Like you get the bike, you obsess at it, you get really fit, you focus on your power numbers, and then you kind of don't care because you can't hold those power numbers anymore, and you stop paying attention. Or
and now
you
you're
went
just
fishing
like,
with a fly rod, and then you started tying flies. Then you took an etymology or entomology class to understand how the bugs do it, and now you just want to go fishing.
Yeah.
So I hear.
That obsession can ruin things for you too. Like that is definitely something.
Like you do, Shannon. Yeah.
Right. Of course.
So you just haven't gotten far enough. Like you have chair kits, but have you really dove down the chair making thing? Like, could you go further and maybe you just get to that point where you've hit saturation and
yes. And on that note, I've gone down the rabbit hole of like manufacturing those things. On a different scale than like the true chair makers are, but yeah, that's like again, that's just widening the whole thing. I'm not adding
the variety
things.
Yeah, there's some variety in there.
So maybe that just keeps me content because I'm always learning and having to do something different. Like I just did all the things on a skid steer. I'd never done any of that stuff before, but I figured it out and I did it.
You do a lot of metalworking. I'm going to say that's a separate hobby, just so you can be normal.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, something else that I'm really obsessed over either. Just make it whatever.
Just make it happen. All right, so that's 17 minutes for one question. We're going to be here a while, guys.
Yeah.
Who wants to hit the next one?
That was like a dining room episode topic, I think.
Almost, right? That could have been a whole show.
I'll take it. We're under what? Bill, man. Yeah, Bill.
Yeah.
I know you guys are busy, so I appreciate when you can produce a show. Hey, here's another one. I was gifted an 8-foot slab of live edge cedar / juniper, about 10 inches thick. Damn. Carpenter, that's a cant. That's not a slab. A carpenter gave it to me for helping him with his go it on his own efforts. Okay. He donated some tools and got it. So assuming I can hook up a guy who owns a sawmill other than cheesy flea market children's furniture, do you see any good uses for it? It's too big for our fireplace and not the vibe for our country cottage. So this is one of those, I have a board, what should I build with it questions.
Those are the best.
I never get those questions. Man, I don't know.
He can have any board though. He can resaw it to anything. That's
what I was thinking. Like, you could make 10 boards. Yeah. Maybe start there. If it's 10 inches thick, start by making 10 boards and then go from there. With a slab, I think Matt actually did a class about this. You could build whole pieces of furniture from the same slab. Or you could build 10 pieces of furniture from it. If what you're asking is, can I do something with cedar / juniper? Heck yeah. Yes, it's soft. The juniper variant is certainly going to be harder, a little bit more interglocked than like your Western red cedar or your Atlantic white. It's probably a lot knottier. Yeah, it is.
Doesn't it have like a lot more color to it?
Yeah, I think so. I think so.
Purples, I think. Is that right?
So yeah,
or am I thinking something else?
Well, you may be thinking aromatic. But, all of this, I don't even know exactly what he's talking about. There is a line between cedar and juniper, but it could be any number of species. But in general,
you're the wood guy.
Well, but you got to be more specific than cedar / juniper. But yeah, I'm of the mindset that any species can be used for just about anything. Like most of the technical properties of wood is way stronger than anything we're ever going to need it for. So you're fine. Don't use an exterior wood or an interior wood for exterior. That's the one thing I would say. This is not really an exterior wood, so I'll say that. Whatever you do, make it inside. Make it for inside. You can make it outside if you want.
Nice.
I'm glad Matt, you got that question.
It's a good one for him.
All right, next one's from Tom Coates. As we know, all of us are having problems reading today. As we know, people love when you talk about content creation.
They do.
I'm sure they do. After a couple of recent videos from Matt and Mark where they discuss wearing earphones in the workshop, have you had to cut things out of video in editing that you were oblivious to when recording? such as flatulence or some bad singing or even a screaming child/wife. Sorry, Shannon. UPS setting off the dog does not count, as I imagine that happens quite a lot. You get a lot of deliveries there, Shannon?
No, I just have a blowhard of a dog.
Apparently this thing's happening a lot, so I don't know.
Yeah,
More than once a day?
Leaves go by the window. Like, God, he's such a dick. That's really what it comes down to. He's just a blowhard.
I don't have any good examples of this. We definitely cut around screaming children in the background just because, like, if we're cutting between clips of screaming versus non-screaming, it's very obvious. So we'll typically kind of cut around that unless that, like, child chatter in the background is, like, a fun little allusion to the fact that I'm a father and I live in a house with children. Pretty rarely do I cut around, like, any swearing because I don't typically do that, but that happens sometimes too, but nothing... I don't have any good stories for this, unfortunately.
Trips to the emergency room, you cut around those, right?
Yeah,
that was like
that's one.
Anything cool that happens, the camera's not rolling. That's like the worst part of my life.
Nice.
All the cool stuff, camera's off.
I did have to cut out, it wasn't audible flatulence, but my dog, to the point where it was so bad that I started coughing uncontrollably. It was so bad. He replaced the air in the room. This was Alex. No. This was a while ago, but it was one of those. And I was just like, I can't go on. Pause.
Nice.
That was bad.
I sometimes include flatulence on purpose just as an Easter egg for
why
Todd.
would you cut that out?
No. So I've got an editor, and I'm sure he's heard plenty of things, but it's nothing I was, like, unaware of. I generally know when I fart, so that's not a problem.
Generally.
Most times.
I've reached the age where it's no longer I know.
It's never a sure thing.
Generally, no.
I think mostly here, it's car noise. We're pretty close to the road, even though it's kind of like a country location. It's like a main throughway that people get to a certain town here. So around traffic time, we do get a lot of car noise. He's got to work around that, but really not a ton. Not a ton.
That stuff, though, like, I know it's going on, so I'm, like, working around it, like, in production, not post-production most of the time.
Yeah.
Like at the old house, if it was like a talking bit, we had all the airplanes flying overhead. Mm-hmm. So I had to, like, time all my stuff between the airplanes flying overhead. Yeah. Here, it's gunshots is typically what I'm, like, in production trying to, like, work around if the neighbors are shooting. And I'm like,
kids are out there practicing.
Yeah, take a pause. Yep. Yes. Yeah, that's actually who it is. The game is, how fast can I empty this clip? Or the game is, ammo is free.
Okay.
Because you would think that it's, like, free ammo. Yeah.
Yeah, that's weird.
Nice.
Okay. Where do we...
If I shoot straight into the air, where does the bullet come back down?
I hope they're not playing that game.
Oh, God. Please no.
Wasn't that in Grown Ups, that Adam Sandler movie? They shoot the arrow straight up in the air.
All right, so we did Steve's first one on the other show. Right?
I did that.
No, this is just for you, Mark. This is
good.
Oh, it's worked out perfectly. Yeah.
Okay. The age-old question. So Steve Livingston. The age-old question that has been beaten to death is, how much protection does hard wax oil finishes offer? So let's move on, shall we? What I want to know is, how does the appearance of hard wax oil compare to other more protective finishes? On each of my projects, I have done test samples of Rubio, Osmo, and Odie's, and by far, I think the Odie's looks the best. The holographic wood pop is amazing. Maybe the tongue oil in Odie's. I also love the ease of use. Side note, I know that Odie's is a bad word, but this isn't a discussion about CEOs that should not be spokesmen for their company. I just like the product, and we don't have as many hard wax options in Canada. After hearing Mark talk about Armor Seal, I would like to give it a try on projects where I need that added protection. So my question is, how does hard wax oil finish like Odie's compare in appearance compared to something like Armor Seal? Would there be any benefit to using tongue oil with Armor Seal as a top coat? Or does Armor Seal just look as good as hard wax finishes on its own? For reference, the wood varieties I have available are cherry, elm, butternut, Douglas fir, and poplar.
A Canadian with butternut. What?
Oh my God.
That's the same guy, actually, wasn't it?
It's the same guy.
Better send somebody.
I think the answer is to embrace David Marks and just call it all tongue oil. Use Armor Seal and just call it oil. Fine tongue oil. You're fine.
So this is interesting. Anyone who has used both of these finishes, you immediately know the difference. It's a very big difference. Armor Seal is a diluted varnish. It's going to build coats. It's going to be a thick film. It's noticeably sitting on top of the wood. though it looks beautiful. And I think it does it really well for what it is, especially if you don't go too crazy with too many coats. It can look fantastic. What's that, the tool chest behind you? Armor seal?
That's Armor Seal.
Right? Looks great. Hard wax oils are very low luster finishes. There's not a lot of sheen. There's no major buildup on the surface. So it is a very light sort of coat that's there, if you can call it a coat. Very easy to... Yeah, I mean, it's not...
More of a vest.
Yeah, that's a good one.
A shawl.
Yeah. It's more of like a sheer material kind of top.
Nice. Sexy.
A little sexy looking. But vastly different in what these things actually are and what they look like. Okay. So, I mean, I don't know if I fully answer that question, but I think it's one of the reasons why people like those hard wax oil finishes. They're easy to apply, and they honestly they make the wood look good. They make it look good, and it's easy to make it look good with those finishes. They're just not offering as much protection as you would get with something like Armor Seal, which is more of a traditional finish. It's a traditional film. And when you touch the surface, when you put a cup on the surface or a wet glass, you're interacting with the finish and not the wood. Whereas a hard wax oil definitely puts you closer to the wood. The things you're putting on it are much closer to interacting with the wood layer and not a layer of finish, if that makes sense. Okay. Unless you guys have anything to add, we can move on to the next one. Oh,
good
great
job,
question
Mark.
here. Thanks.
Very good answer.
I think Matt should demonstrate through this next question.
Yep, go for it.
Shannon's Lumber Industry Updates. Something, blah, blah, blah. He's
I don't
doing
know
a
what
lumber
it is either.
show.
I think that's all it is.
Well, that answers the question.
Like, there has to be more. Is there not more? Maybe not. I don't remember.
No.
I haven't heard it in a while.
I think it's all the bop things in the beginning that make it feel longer.
Yeah. Although for the people listening or watching, someone asked, is that Matt singing the intro song to the Lumber?
Oh, I didn't even read the question yet. Okay.
No,
Nope,
you never
you
read the
didn't.
question. They just think Matt had a stroke, basically.
Yeah. You okay, Matt? You doing all right there?
No, I'm with you guys. I'm definitely not okay.
Nope. Could be better.
Fair enough.
It's like the worst.
Oh, by the way, I have to ride my bike home, and we do have a tornado warning.
Oh,
Nice. Right on.
So this is going to be good.
Yeah, but it's an e-bike. You'll power
Motivation.
And Nicole, of course, worried about the appropriate things, says, try to keep Oreo in. There's a big storm coming.
through that. Absolutely. Oreo's bigger role on the show than you now, at least
He
on your
really
socials.
is. He
Yeah, I'm
is.
sure he gets more clicks.
Okay, who's reading next?
This is me, I think, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Sure.
This is from Stephen Clement. What's the deal with bandsaw blades? I hear everyone advise, throw away the blade that came with the saw, but that doesn't come with an explanation of how to tell a good blade from a bad one. My bandsaw is a vintage Delta, so it didn't come to me with a blade. I've been using Olsen blades that are $20 each. Are those akin to the crap blades that come with saws, or are those good blades meant to replace the crap blades? Is there a price point that tells you the difference between a good or a bad blade? Olsen's work for me, but I know I'm missing out on some nirvana. If it matters, I'm primarily hand tool woodworker, usually running a 3/8 4 TPI blade, cutting 8/4 and thinner for rough rip cuts and roughing out curves. Okay, good, because that was going to be my first thing is, like, how do you use it? Like, I mean, if all you're doing is resawing, then you don't really need you never want to use a 1/4 inch blade for that. So I don't know. I haven't bought a bandsaw blade in 10 years, 15 years. So yeah, somebody else want to answer this? Is there a price point now? I mean, I used to think there was. I was
definitely
a wood slicer resaw bandsaw blade guy. So.
Yeah. There are definitely different classes of bandsaw blades, and you get into things like the carbide tipped blades.
Yeah.
Ones with specialty, configurations on the teeth where you can get different results or better results. But I also have had issues with some of those blades in the past, and I've had them break at the weld. And I'm like, it's like $120 mistake that was just made, and I've got to replace this thing. And I started to kind of come around to the other end where I'm like, you know what? That $20 blade, if it lasts me 6 months and I have to replace it again, I'd rather do that than have a higher end blade that keeps breaking on me, but costs like $120, $150, maybe more.
That's exactly what we've done at the lumberyard, because they will break. And we might as well just get the cheap ones to replace.
Yeah, so I actually don't think there's anything wrong. And I think the bandsaw, the table saw, as you're learning, when you're getting into woodworking, when people tell you, it's great that you got that information. Hey, throw away that stock blade. It's crap. Get something else. have you used it? Have you tried it? Because sometimes it's not completely crap. Yeah, there's going to be better, but this is how you amass a knowledge base of understanding of how these things work over time and what you're paying for when you pay more, right? So I do think it's important to actually go ahead and use the stock blade. Use it until it's not cutting well anymore, and now you have a reference point. You have a data point that you can use when you do buy a new blade, what the difference is between that and the other one. And you still have some life in that stock blade that you can get, unless it's actively cutting poorly, there's no reason not to use it. It's a waste to just throw it away. Matt, you got other feelings on this?
I do the carbide thing and my blades don't break. So I'm on the other end of like,
so this
that's the only thing you should have.
All right.
It cuts forever. I just replaced my carbide blade on my the bandsaw in the shop last year sometime. And before that, the blade I had on there was from 2018. And the only reason I replaced it is because it wasn't quite cutting smoothly. It still cut just fine, but it wasn't like nice and flat and like pretty or whatever. It was rougher. That's what happens over time. They kind of wear out in that sense. But if you're looking for rough cuts, it's fine. But I was doing some joinery. So I'm like, okay, let me just change it out. And before that, I used the wood slicer blades. And I would go through one of those 2 to 3 months. They'd only last me that long. And they were like $40-something at that point. So I'm like, okay, no. I switched to the carbide blades. And the first one I got 34 months out of.
Wow.
For 4 times the cost, I think it was, somewhere around there.
So basically, ask 3 woodworkers, get three
different answers.
Yep,
because I never had problems with my wood sizer blades. Like I had great experience with my wood slicer blades. I just used them enough that
they got too dull. They stopped cutting straight.
Yeah, well, that'll do
I think for the volume you do, Matt, that's where the carbide really can make its money. And I don't know whether it was a configuration problem on my saw or a bad batch that I kept that string of breaks that I kept having.
I don't know what the heck was up with that, because I've never had that problem with mine. Like my sawmill blades, I don't have that problem with mine either. On the sawmill, I run carbide on there now, and I have a blade per year on the sawmill. And I can cut these big logs consistently, flatly, and perfectly, and cut through any crap that's in them without worrying. Okay. The blade costs more than the basic ones, but they actually last longer, and you actually can make it out of a cut if there's metal in it, and keep cutting for the rest of the year.
Wow.
Versus a standard blade, you hit metal, you might not even make it out of that cut.
Yeah. Well, the good news is Steven is more confused than he was before he asked the question.
You're welcome, Steven.
There we go.
All right, who's next? You up now, Matt?
You are, Mark.
Oh, me.
Yes, you, yeah.
Oh, my buddy Greg Bat. What's happening, Greg?
It's a Wenge question for Mark.
Building a bar top, that's my favorite. Building a bar top at a solid Wenge for a walnut bar cabinet that has a matte finish. It's for use in my home, not a commercial setting, so I'm not too worried about heavy-duty wear and tear, and I'm comfortable making repairs if needed. I'd like the Wenge to appear as close to black as possible, but I also want to preserve the natural texture and feel of the wood, nothing plasticky or overly glossy. Boy, this is relevant to the other question that was asked. What finishing approach would you recommend to get that deep black look while keeping the wood looking and feeling natural and still offering reasonable durability for a bar top? All right, well, of course, the hard wax oils will be an opportunity here. That's definitely something you can consider. When it comes to Wenge, I think pretty much any oil-based finish is going to turn it muddy black. I don't think you have to work very hard to make that happen. You can use finishes that won't do that. Like you might have trouble with a water-based finish on top of Wenge for various reasons, maybe a certain type of lacquer, but oil in particular is going to absorb. And that's the thing. Sometimes it's bad when you see some of the, you know how Wenge has the darkest brown and then it's got light brown streaks in the grain and you want to see that. And then you go and put
the chocolatey brown and it disappears.
Yeah, and it goes away real fast. So I think you're totally fine with either a hard wax oil that's not going to give you a ton of protection, but you got that repairability aspect to it, or other things in a case like this. I might even consider something like a Danish oil, like a Watco Danish oil, one that's basically got a little bit of oil and varnish in it. You can get a very low luster finish. You could build as many coats as you want with something like that. You're wiping off the excess each time, so you're not leaving a lot of finish on the surface, so it isn't going to be that thick film, but it will offer a little bit of protection that might be helpful, and water resistance and things like that. I would definitely be looking at a Danish oil or something like Armor Seal. Again, we just talked about how different that is. That will build coats faster than something like a Danish oil. which sounds like what you're not looking for, but you can. There are things I've finished in the past with like 1 or 2 coats of wiped on, wiped off armor seal to try to get a little bit of protection, but not go like overboard with the film thickness. So you've got options there, Greg.
Well, it's also such a porous wood that, you'd have to put a lot of coats on it to get it looking super plasticky because,
Well, and you're going to run into the same thing. I was going to say, we talked about in the last show, issues I've had with the finishing shop and open poured species like that. You're running into trouble with that because now, like you said, you build that film, it's going to look like crap on top of that unless you do a pour fill.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Who next?
Last one, I think, isn't it? Yeah. Matt, you're up.
Yeah, there we go.
I'm scrolling here. Oh, we did that one already? Okay.
Is it Adria? Adria's question?
Okay. My cheap bandsaw seems to cut all boards with a really gentle curve. They end up banana-shaped like Matt Vanderlist's hand planes.
Oh, that's a deep cut.
Is this drift or is there something else I need to tune up? I've adjusted the fence to compensate for drift, but if I make a long rip cut on a long board, it ends up having a 20-foot radius curve to it. Do I either need to get a better bandsaw or start ripping with a frame saw? Thanks.
Oh, don't do that. Only crazy people do that.
That's interesting. I'm trying to like.
She is a hand tool school member, so
yeah.
There we go. Come on, get one of these puppies. Video in the hand tool school on how to make this.
Okay, so I have 2 things I could think of for
Matt
this.
just goes right by that. Okay, bye.
Yeah, just ignore it. It's easiest.
I'm sorry, Shannon. You can say your thing.
No.
Don't let him. Please, don't let him.
Go to the hand tool.
Seriously,
keep going.
Get a frame saw. Okay.
Yeah.
First thing I wanted to just kind of bring up as a possibility is how straight is the edge of the board you have against the fence? Because if that, whatever you're doing to achieve a straight cut on that side, if it has that same radius to it, you're going to be matching that radius as you're going along the fence. That could be something as something to think of because I don't really have a good answer for this. The other thing is it's for some reason it's drifting out in the middle of the cut and then drifting back towards the end, but I don't know why that would happen either. Like the cut dynamics on this don't really make a whole lot of sense to me unless it's the board that it started with or your technique somehow.
What about a dull blade?
But it would drift in the middle, but gradually, you think, like that? Maybe the set's off on one side versus the other. That could maybe do it. But I don't see it coming back, though. If the set was off, it would drift away and stay away and not come back.
What if the blade's not running true on the wheels? Doesn't it slightly kink the blade and make it cut in a curve? I've always just been told to align it, and I've never actually put it out of alignment to see what happens. But
I just don't know if it would come back into a complete curve like that.
The fact that it's
returning. Right. I see what you're saying.
It would just kick out to some certain point. So you would see like a hook shape, like a big long J shape or something, but not like a big, it comes back to where it started kind of curve.
Yeah.
That is weird. I mean, my first read on it, I didn't think it was that weird of a question. Now that you mention it, that seems odd.
Yeah. I mean, I think the answer is hurry before the tariffs kick in and go buy a really nice bandsaw from Woodcraft.
Yeah, go to Woodcraft. There's your solution.
I hear Laguna tariffs are kicking in sometime around the middle of July. I can't remember.
We have all the answers. Well, someone on there, Eric, mentioned, have you followed the Alex Snodgrass method? And I've got a video, he linked to it there, with Alex showing that setup method. I wonder, I mean, it's worth...
I don't...
do the calibration, but I'm thinking like what she's describing doesn't necessarily sound like something that calibration would fix.
Yeah.
It's a really odd problem.
Other than to blame you and your technique, I got nothing.
It's Adria's fault.
I don't like saying that.
But I mean,
per se,
there's not really a lot of technique in a bandsaw, right?
No, you're just pushing. I mean, you could push. You could push hard. You could push light. You could push fast.
Yeah.
But you're just pushing.
I mean, the only thing with pushing that makes sense is that you're pushing slowly in the beginning, so it's cutting at the right speed. Then you're pushing too fast towards the middle.
Too fast, and
so then it's starting to drift, and then you're slowing down for some reason towards the end. So now it's coming back to true again.
Yeah,
like that's the only technique thing I can think of that would even do this.
Well, can't hurt to calibrate. Like recalibrate, see what happens. Also can't hurt to address whether or not maybe you need a new blade. A dull blade on a bandsaw will wreak havoc. It will just do things. It'll follow the grain. It'll just be weird. And getting a new blade could definitely be something that will forgive a lot of those sins. You just
okay. Go with me here.
I'm ready.
We're with you.
Matt actually just sparked something in my head. Pushing too fast, then too slow, then too fast. It's only on these long boards. Well, she said it curves a lot, but if it's on a long board, address your outfeed support. Wax your table. But then also, like, if there's poor support, you know, as she's pushing, it's fine. But then as it starts to like cantilever off and it's kinking the blade, it's deviating and deflecting. But then, you know, as it's more and more deflected off, it reverts back. Maybe could be outfeed support.
Yeah, maybe.
Try that.
This is one of those things like I want to just go to your shop and see this and like noodle.
Well, there you go. There's the answer. One first class ticket because Matt only flies first class.
For you, but at least it would be like, oh yeah, that's weird.
Yeah,
we could always be like, oh yeah,
that's odd. Thanks for the video.
Yeah,
weird. I mean, she could just film the whole thing.
You
know, so I don't know, on a cheap bandsaw, she probably doesn't have this option. But one thing that I saw Philip Morley do on my bandsaw, we were doing bent lamination video. He pulled my fence forward, like on the infeed side, so that once it's past the blade, he cares a lot less about what's happening. So sometimes if there's some weirdness in your fence, you're influencing the direction of the cut and the orientation of the cut if the fence extends a lot further past the back of the blade.
Yeah.
So most of the reference is happening before the cut, and then after the cut, doesn't really matter so much what happens as long as you have more runway to keep pressed up against the fence. So I don't know if a cheap bandsaw typically is not going to allow you to do that, but maybe add a sacrificial or a supplemental fence face on there.
Standoff kind of thing.
Yeah. So you have a little bit more room to work with.
Kind of the same principle in like the resaw fence that allows you to micro steer. Put a flat fence, but don't extend it through the blade. Put it ahead of the blade. And yeah, that'd be an interesting test. It's certainly cheap enough to take a scrap block and throw it there.
I think that's where she's at now. Is you gotta change some things and do some more
Start
cuts.
messing with it.
Just that, like, the bandsaw might be one of the trickiest things to, at least for me, I find it to be one of the trickiest tools to diagnose a specific problem and fix.
I just never relied on it for precision. And I know that's wrong because there's been some incredible precision coming out of proper setup, but I was always just using it like ripping a rough sawn board. Like I was using it because I wouldn't get kickback or whatever, or I was freehanding a cut, or any of the resawing I did with a point fence. So I was micro steering anyway. I just never relied on it for perfectly straight cuts. You know, that was a table saw in my mind.
A lot of this stuff I don't have to think about anymore because of the carbide blades. You don't have to even tune your saw. At least I don't. Like my guides aren't touching. I'm missing a guide on my lowers. It's like there's no side support guide down there. I don't really know what the drift angle is because it doesn't matter either.
So there you go, Adria. Buy a bandsaw blade that probably costs more than your bandsaw.
That's the crappy answer. I don't.
I mean, that's one way to get better results. I've done that in the past. Get a good quality. I mean, same thing with a table saw.
Spend more money. It's always a good way to get good results.
That is generally my solution to all problems.
As long as you spend money at Woodcraft.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. All right. Well, look, that was it. You guys asked great questions. Thank you for your support. That means a lot to us. And if this helped you, and hopefully it did for some of you, probably not Adria, but everybody else.
Sorry if we didn't. Please ask another question. We're sorry.
We'll do better next time, I guess.
Ask again next time. Ask again later. What was that?
That's what we need. We need a Wood Talk 8-ball.
Yeah, that'd be perfect. Oh, man. All right. Well, we really appreciate you guys listening, asking those questions. And, of course, thanks to our sponsor, Woodcraft, for sponsoring the show. Check them out at woodcraft.com. All right. Thanks for listening, everybody, and we'll see you next time.
Or will we? Who knows?
You never know.